Hi, everyone. Welcome. We are here today to do this interview that I was very excited. I'm still very excited to see what he's going to answer. I have a lot of questions for him. Thank you, Loic, to come over here to accept my invitation.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. We were talking a little bit before, and now I want to ask you, how did you arrive to this diagnosis?
You know, very often people assume that a psychopath don't even know he's a psychopath. And what people don't understand is okay, you don't know that you are a psychopath because you are not a psychologist, psychiatrist, but you know that you are different. That's why you need to adapt yourself and you need to wear what we call a mask. And you gonna know pretty quickly in life that you're different, that you don't react the same way, you don't feel the same way, and you don't see life as the same way. So it's very quickly that in life you understand that, and your family gonna understand that too very quickly.
Wow. But in your case, how did you go to that diagnosis? Did you go to a psychiatrist because your parents told you, let's do it? Some situation that happened that they said, hey, something is not right, we need help. What happened to you?
That was both. You come to a point in life when you get some problems sometimes, and one day you need to learn about yourself, because the better things you can do in life is to know as much as possible about yourself. And I was like, maybe I'm different, but that's okay, because if I'm different, I want to live with it and to be okay with that. I'm pretty lucky that my parents are pretty open and just accept me like the way I am. And my parents was sometimes like that. It's very strange the way you act with girls, the way you are never in stable relationship. The instability and the impulsivity of life too, doing some studies and stopping school, etc. That was quite a mess sometimes, and pretty quickly you understand that you are different. You tell to yourself, and your parents are like, it's sometimes difficult.
Yes, and I saw some interview that you did before that you mentioned that some people in your family that also had psychopathy. Can you say something about that?
Yeah, because psychopathy is genetic. It's both social and genetic, but there is a lot of part of genetic in it. And my grandfather, sorry, was psychopathic, and the brother of my mother is a real scammer. I want to say he got a lot of traits of psychopathy, and he just scammed my mother. When my grandfather died, there's the thing with the money, etc. It just took away the money, and we never heard of him. So this is a common train of psychopathy. A lot of psychopaths are scam artists, etc. Not all, but in my family, it's pretty genetic.
You said you felt you were different, right? What was the first time you felt that? You remember how old were you?
The first time I understood I was psychopath. Oh, but maybe I was 6 or 7 years old. I don't even remember. I was pretty young. I was like in the dining room of the school, and there was a, a boy into my classroom. And he died in a dramatic car accident. And we were all in this dining room. A lot of people were crying, etc. I was like, what just happened? Guys, what just happened? And I was not understanding that people were sad. And at one moment, the director of the school just came and said to herself, okay, guys, it's dramatic. A little boy just died in a car accident. And all other person in the room were like, etc. Start crying, and was like, what the fuck, guys? I don't understand what you are feeling. And but that was the first time I was masking, and I was like, because I'm never gonna forget the look of my teacher. She was looking me in the eyes, and she was understanding that I was not feeling sad. And I was like, okay, maybe I need to do something because the others are crying, I'm not crying. And when you're a psychopath, it's more a question of survival, of adaptability, because you are not wired as the same way as others. So you quickly understand that for your good and to survive, you need to adapt because you are not like the others. And you understand that pretty quickly.
That's interesting. Thanks for sharing. So you realize at that moment, and then since then, you start masking, you start looking at people, what they do, when they do. So here I'm supposed to cry. So then you start faking it, like crying and saying things that you're supposed to say.
Yes, yes. And this is the time when you understand that your life is gonna be pretty, you're gonna feel exhausted. So, because sometimes you feel tired of masking and doing some things that you don't feel, etc. But people often think that we don't feel, and that's quite false too, because very often people think that we are just like a stone or something like that don't feel something. This is quite different because we can feel. If we don't feel, we are not alive, but we feel different in different ways. And very often people say, but yeah, but you cannot feel that. You cannot feel that. Very often people ask me, what is your taste preference? Do you have taste preference? Is it possible for you? I'm like, yes, it's possible for me. And people don't understand. Sometimes it's difficult, and that's why you need to maybe eye yourself or something like that. Get what you want in life. And in the first place, I was living my life without asking question, because when you are a psychopath, you live on the moment. You don't ask too much question. You feel pretty good about yourself. You don't really suffer about it.
Yes, I heard that you guys don't feel sadness and depression. What do you feel the most?
I want to say frustration, frustration, and the thing for myself. I speak for myself. The thing I prefer the most is loyalty, and that makes me feel, I want to say, happy, because that's the thing I appreciate the most. So we cannot feel really sadness, depression. That's quite an edge, I think. But we can feel not depression, but some days you can feel shitty. You haven't slept good, and you tell yourself, "Oh, that's a shitty day," etc. But you quickly get off the thing, and for the rest, I think we can feel happiness, we can feel joy, we can feel all the positive emotion.
But not love and empathy, right?
Empathy is not possible for us because the brain is wired differently. So it is not a question of not trying, it is a question more of impossibility. The brain cannot. It's just like a blind person who cannot see. It's impossible. And some people are going to tell to yourself, but do an effort, be more empathetic or more less colder. And you tell to yourself, it's impossible for me. I cannot. I cannot. But I think it's very difficult for people to understand because it is in the brain and we cannot see it. So love, yes, we can love in all way. I want to say maybe possession, uh, something like that.
Okay. Do you fear anything?
Of not being successful, maybe, but fear something. No, when I cannot feel danger, I cannot feel anguish, and so fear something. I cannot use the word fear because if I was fearing something, I would probably not be here and talking about my psychopathy in front of so much people.
Yes, and that's a good thing that you're saying. What? really motivate you to come over here and to give the other interviews that I watched before? What is the motivation for it?
The first thing is that I was so tired of hearing a lot of people saying, "Ah, psychopath, they're just serial killer, they're just rapist, etc." I was like, "Stop." And I tell to myself, maybe I can do something about it. Maybe it can help people and help me by the way. So that was pretty obvious for me to start doing interviews and to give the speech, etc., to help people and to understand that psychopaths are not all bad person, and sometimes psychopaths, sorry, can do good things and can help society. That's my belief. For me, it's really difficult to put me in a state of anger. I'm pretty calm. I'm a pretty calm person, but it depends on the situation. If somebody that I don't appreciate, I'm gonna let the person know it. But I can be more feel anger more quickly, I want to say. But I'm not in a state of anger all the time, not in a state of boredom too, because I work a lot, and if I don't work, I can feel boredom, and that's where the frustration come, and that's where you feel irritability, you feel anger, and something like that. And so, I think working all the time is a good thing for psychopath because you know it gives the positive, and you try to hide the negative inside of you. I think.
I agree. I agree because usually what they tell us is they do manipulation and things like that to get out of this boredom state, right? Because they need to feel something, even putting themselves at risk and some other people too, because then this time that's when they feel a little bit. When is
Yeah.
the time that you feel the most? Like I was gonna ask you the last question about sex, but because you are a man, right? I know it. Is it for you the same thing as some people that they explain that you have this desire for sex more than normal people?
Yeah. I think the question is very interesting because if you look at it, sex is a good way to get dopamine into the brain. It's a good dopamine reveals, I want to say, and it's a question so of dopamine though sex, but very often it comes with addiction to alcohol, maybe drugs, because if you look in the brain, it's quite the same reaction because it liberates dopamine. So we get more an attraction of dopamine than other people. Can be sex, can be maybe drug, cocaine, very often stimulant, alcohol. But I want to be honest, and maybe we can be quite more addictive to sex than other people because if you look at it, sex can be a good way of dopamine, of domination for some people. It's the first thing in the manipulation, when you get this first phase of beautiful, of quite romantic relationship, sex is the first thing. And it's, I think, a good way of getting dopamine, etc., for psychopaths.
Okay, good to know. I heard you saying in other interviews too that the type of ladies that you used to to look for,
Target. Yeah,
yes, was the ones that were depressed and didn't have their father anymore,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
But in your case, what would you looking to get from those ladies?
In my past, I was searching for girls like that because a psychopath don't love to wait too much. If we talk about dopamine, it's quick, quick. I want to say reward or something like that because our brain is wired like that. It's in us, and we don't love to wait too much. We don't love to be challenged or something like that. Sometimes a psychopath can love challenge, but for my case, that was more a question of I want something and I want it now. So, you know, a depressed girl and a girl without a father was more attractive in terms of getting what I want, because somebody that got these types of, I want to say, things in life, they are more manipulative. And that was my case. But now for 3 years, I want to say I don't manipulate anymore.
Thanks God. I just don't know if I believe 100%, but
Mhm.
if your brain functioning like that, and if you need dopamine, if you're bored, what would you do? Stand to replace.
To work all the time, to work in politics, and to get what I can and to do the good. So I think the question of dopamine is not, because very often people are gonna say, okay, a psychopath need dopamine, but need dopamine for the bad. That's a question of selfishness, etc. But if you learn and if you work on yourself, you can get new ways of getting something in dopamine and making the good for others. I firmly believe that a psychopath can be so much powerful to do the good than another person, because if you look at it, if a brain is wired to get something and to never stop until you get it, just imagine at the end of a country to protect the people, it can be very effective. Yes, sometimes it takes more time to get something, but that's life. And with the therapy you can learn about it, to retard gratification and to not get something in the moment, but you can work on frustration, something like that, because you're going to pay the price, and that's going to be far more expensive with manipulation, with problem with the police, etc. So I understood that.
Smart. I like that. But what do you do to get over it? Because I know the impulse comes, right?
Mhm.
How is not easy for you guys because we have the break to push, but for you, because you want it now, you want it for yesterday. How do
Yeah,
you do that?
it's quite difficult. A lot of work, a lot of frustration, because when you go to therapy, it's not something that is a miracle, Therapy takes time, work, and try again and again. And sometimes you say to yourself, oh, just everybody got away from me because, I'm going to stop the therapy, etc. But after that you say to yourself, maybe I can do better and something like that, because there is a lot of thing in that. But I believe in something greater, and in my beliefs, I need to do something about it, and this is the break, I think, because you know you can get the thing quickly, but after that, and you're gonna search for quick things and another quick things, and this is all other psychopaths maybe function, but in myself, I got this inner voice telling me that maybe you need to suffer now. So it's quite difficult sometimes to break, like you said, but after that, you tell to yourself that was a good choice because it's far better. Functioning psychopath is to understand that others have rights, and that was so much difficult. That was difficult to understand that, because I was like, okay, for me in the past, a human beings was like a rock, a stone, something that don't have emotion, a robot, you know. So I was like, I need to understand that these people can feel sad if I do bad things. That's my definition of functioning psychopath. Somebody who is capable of living without destroying anybody else, and to not destroying myself too.
Wonderful. Do you believe for sure, like, because nobody knows? I was watching this show that was talking about it's about 250 years that people are trying to figure it out. When the serial killer gets catch and they go to jail and they start doing interviews and they start studying, the something that was similar to all of them. So they got to the conclusion until today, which I agree, that is a mix, it's multifactorial, which includes the genetic,
Mhm.
right? That you have in a family, the brain that has the amygdala. I think is that's the
Yeah,
way it
yeah,
says.
yeah,
Amygdala is 18% shorter, smaller than us, but still able to choose, right? That's
yeah,
you giving here your testimony that it's possible, right? If you really
yeah.
want, if you do your work, you will be able to. It's possible. So the ones that say, "Oh, it's not possible. I was born like this, so it's not my fault," and they keep doing wrong and wrong and wrong and excusing like this, I don't think it's fair.
I see these people. I'm gonna say it. I see these people as weak. As I'm gonna stay polite, but I don't love them too much because everybody got a chance. Uh, you got the capacity to. If you got the capacity to screw somebody, you get the capacity to understand to not screw somebody. So, I think that's a thing to with a functioning psychopath. It's interesting because it's to understand that you got the will. You can decide what to do and what not to do. So when I hear these people telling, "Oh, that's not my fault. My mom was alcoholic, etc." For me, it's like, guys, stop making an excuse because if I can make it, you can make it. She can make it. You can make it. Everybody can make it. Okay, some people are in situations that are pretty sad, pretty bad, but for psychopaths, there's not a lot of excuse. Okay, you lived maybe a traumatic childhood, but I believe that you can change not in the brain, but in the behavior. That's a choice.
Yes, yes, it's awesome. I
Mhm.
love that. So it's possible, even if you're born like that, it's possible to choose because free will, right?
Yes, that was the word, free will, because you get this free will. So I believe that if you continue to, maybe you go to prison, you get out, and you start screwing again. Man, that's stupid. You got one life, and you do that. So this free will in my therapy was something very important because when you understand that, you're telling to yourself, "Oh, guy, there is so much possibility." Then myself believe that screwing others, it's so, I want to say, materialistic. It's stupid now that I see in my past. I was like, that was so materialistic, so stupid, so short term. And now with evolution, I still not feel empathy, but I'm looking to myself and I'm pretty proud to telling to myself, okay, that's the work I've made on myself. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool because no more selfishness, no more destruction of anybody else. So I think it's pretty positive. And every psychopath got the chance. Every narcissistic too.
Yes. So do you believe that psychopaths are born like this?
Mhm.
I start thinking that all of them, including narcissists and sociopaths, are born like this too, like the genetic side, and nobody checks their brain. I know they check the brain of the ones that go to prison
Yeah.
in some countries, but not in every country. So we don't have much to say that for sure.
Yeah. Narcissism is, with the latest studies, is the studies start to show that narcissism is genetic too, especially grandiose narcissism, but all kind of narcissism, tends to be genetic. So if it's genetic, there is a good chance that you are born that way. So it's a different way of seeing things, because people are gonna say, "Oh, these are monster." Not really, but they do bad things, and the behavior is the behavior of sometimes a monster, but the person is not always a monster. The behavior is bad.
But also, when I see the interviews, I see that they talk about the trauma in childhood.
I think it's called epigenetic. There is the genetic that is the gun, and the social environment is the bullet, and sometimes the trigger is pulled. So when you look at it, some some of them had bad childhood. I don't want to say that I had a good childhood because my mom was alcoholic, very poor, etc. But I think every brain is different too. So people often think that a psychopath is that way, and there are not open so much open, because if you see things like that, a psychopath is like that, but you're gonna miss the chance. You're gonna miss the whole thing, because every psychopath is different. Like every human is different. So a psychopath had a different childhood, but a different education, etc. So a psychopath is born that way, but if you got a traumatic childhood, bad treatments, etc., maybe you're gonna be more violent and more aggressive.
What makes you think, since you have the diagnosis and you see that you're different than others, what makes you believe more that you were born like that and not there was something made?
I always tell it to myself, because a lot of people ask this question: Are you born that way, or did you just become that way? Um, I always tell to people, just take, for example, the D-Day, during World War II, the landing on the beach, and you leave that day, and this is a real slaughter. There is blood everywhere, bullet that floating around, and a lot of your comrades died on this beach, and you get back to America or Britain, and you need to live a normal life. That doesn't make them psychopathic, and that doesn't make them narcissistic. So they were adults, but I don't think that a trauma or something like that can make you a psychopath. I believe that, yes, traumatic childhood can have a big impact. I believe. Maybe if you look, I don't know, I don't love to take these examples, but a lot of serial killers were so sad and so much bad treatments in childhood. So I think it can impact, but my belief is that you need to be born that way. Your brain is wired that way, just like a blind person. Their eyes is are different, or maybe there is a dysfunction, etc. And this is the same with empathy and the amygdala. A narcissist can feel empathy. If you look at it, it just make the choice to not feel empathy because you are not worth of it. A narcissist is gonna tell to himself, I'm so much bigger than you, so much better. That's who you are. I don't need to feel empathy for you. Psychopaths, we are different. I tend to see it as something funny with narcissists, because I see them. I've told it in an interview. I see them as weak. I don't need attention or the look of others to feel good, and the narcissist is pretty vulnerable to that. So I think their brain is maybe different in some case, but they can feel empathy in some case.
Yes, you never felt empathy at all. Because I was analyzing Ted Bundy when he was last day or
Yeah,
before that, but the last day when he knew for sure, because he was so sure that he was gonna make it, that everybody was gonna believe on him because he believed
yeah.
in himself, right? And when he realized that wasn't gonna happen, he freaked out. He was afraid to die, of course, but where's the empathy for others? But he had empathy for himself, right? Because he was not wanting to die and he had felt sorry for himself.
I don't know if it's sympathy or basic survival instinct. I don't even know because uh, I want to assume that if I need to die tomorrow, I'm gonna not sleep very well because it's a question of basic instinct, you know? Maybe you're not gonna feel fear as the way others gonna feel, you know? You're not gonna feel it physically, but you're gonna tell to yourself, "Ma, that's crap because I'm gonna die tomorrow." So I think we can care for ourselves. And this is very interesting because in therapy, I learned to care about others like they are an extension of me. So it's a question of they are me. So I need to care about them because now in my relationship in love, it's like that. The person is just an extension of me. Some people are gonna say, "Oh, it's quite nocive or bad," but it worked for me.
That's good. If it works for you, it works for
Yeah.
us. And also another situation. Before he knew he was going to go to death penalty, they got him because they see bites on the person, the victim. So they got him to the dentist. So when he got to the place and he saw the chair, and he freaked out. Like I think it was loss of control because he didn't know what they were going to do to him, pull his teeth off or something. But he freaked out. I don't know if it was fear or loss of control, but it was interesting to me to realize the way they describe he got really really tense there. He didn't like it all.
Yeah, because I think he understood what he have done, but he understood what's gonna happen next. I think he was. I want to assume that, and he said the words would be game over. The game is finished. Now I cannot manipulate anymore. I cannot bite somebody anymore. So I think that was more like that question of man. The game is over, and I don't like to lose the game.
Wow, that's amazing because that's exactly what it is. Now it makes sense to me. And because you think somehow the same way, let's say,
Yeah.
right? Because you it's amazing because if you didn't say that, I was gonna keep thinking, oh, maybe he was afraid. Maybe he was, but no, it's really true that all game over. Now they're gonna know. Now they have proof.
You know, it's funny because since my interviews, a lot of people told me to, you know, make a job with the police to help them to catch somebody or to help them spot manipulation, etc. So I was like that. Maybe it's a good idea. Maybe.
And I love to do that too. I'm thinking about studying to be investigating the cases, the crime cases. I like that too. I don't know why, but I do like to learn the behavior of people. And since I'm talking to you here, I'm getting more answers. And I'm so grateful that you're being so open and saying, things that we would never know.
My
Okay, I
pleasure.
have few questions. I have few questions here, but one thing before we start. We are here almost an hour, but to start with the questions, I saw one of the interview that you gave that make me think about the traumas too, because you said when your mom got divorced, I believe your father left her or something like that. She started drinking. She started becoming alcoholic, and then she said things to you that you say it doesn't help when you're already a psychopath.
Yeah.
And so you understand that make something like maybe start to open more doors into the psychopathy.
Yes, I think because you know the story is my mom was starting to be alcoholic with my father. Was she was in a relationship. My father never drink alcohol. It was not alcoholic, but my mom was, and so my father told her, "Now it's over," because you know my mom was pretty violent and words, etc. So she was violent with my father in terms of physical violence, and you know when you are maybe 8 years old, and you got the mother throwing your clothes on the street and etc., telling to yourself, "Oh, that was an error to get a son," etc. You tell to yourself, "Wow, is that life? Is that?" And even you're a psychopath, you see that as a betrayal. We discovered that when I was young, I was pretty much at 100% in the Oedip complex. I don't know if you know it, something. The Oedip complex, Oedipus complex, when a child is in deep love with the mother. So this is kind of interesting because it gives us so much answer. Old boy and a young and teenage, maybe more at the age of 2, 3, 4. Very often they're gonna fall in love with their mother, and it's part of the development and natural things because it changed the boy toward a new state of being, etc. But for me, that was more complex than that with psychopathy because I was seeing that as a possession. So with my father, I was not letting him approach my mother. I was maybe 4 years old, and I was like that, "Father, don't touch me." And I was quite jealous with my mother, etc. A lot of boys make their Oedipus complex, and you'll search on the internet and you can learn about it. It's quite interesting. But for a psychopath, when they do this complex, it's more question of possession, jealousy, and they can be quite aggressive when their mother is not to them anymore. And I was like, after that, when I grew up, there is this break with my mother being alcoholic, pretty violent, etc. So it doesn't help. I think childhood doesn't help when it's traumatic.
Do you What do you think made her go to this path? Because she was an alcoholic. Do you think something that happened in the relationship with your father or something with you? I want to know a little bit about you when you were a child. You say you like to play with fire and stuff. That's interesting
Yeah.
to me.
you know, um, she was pretty sad because she was abandoned by her father. And, this is kind of, I want to imagine that this is the kind of trauma that do so much bad things. And interesting enough, my mother was the type of person I was targeting, but when I was a child, I was not so mean with my mother, but I was sometimes mean with others. Pretty egotistical, pretty not violent, but when we were doing some things, with the colors. When you are a child, you do some things. Uh, I don't know how to say it in English, the drawing, etc. And me, I was not doing that. I was taking the pencil and assumed that was missiles. And I was like on the sheet of paper of others. And they were like crying and telling to the teacher that I was doing that. And I was not drawing something. I was taking the pen as a missile and destroying the drawing of anybody else.
Did you do that because you're just want to do something like you were angry and I'm not going to do everything that everybody tells me to do? I'm going to just do my way. Did you feel pleasure? It was a game for you?
Um, That was a game because I was doing war, and I always loved doing war. War games, war stories, reading about that, and for me, there was like that pretty earlier. I was like, okay, guys, this is a war game, and we're gonna play. They were drawing. I was like destroying everything. So when I was a child, I was doing the war game with others. And when you are into the break at school, maybe you got 15 minutes of break. And I was doing snowballs with stone in that. I was like that, throwing snowballs with little stone in them, and I was throwing that in the face of others. I was doing that because for me there was war, and that was pretty obvious to do that.
Wow. And did you thought about or did you go to army?
No, never, because I was telling to myself, okay, I love that, but sometimes authority can feel pretty difficult for me sometimes, when this guy is yelling and all the things. If I need to have authority, it's only the superior authority, I want to say.
Yes. Do you believe in God?
Yes, I want to say the providence, something like that.
Did your parents were Christian or something like that? Do they have a religion?
Uh, my mother was Christian, I want to say, but I'm not going to the church because I'm not a Christian or some belief that are called esoteric, as the Christian would say. Uh, so I'm not a Christian, but I believe in something, and I think human need to believe.
Tell us a little bit of the things that you realized since your childhood that you are different, other than those things that you say, if you remember anything else.
Yeah, but in the garden I was playing with the fire, and I can feel danger. So when I was playing with fire, that was not in reasonable way, maybe with a lot of gasoline, something like that. When I grew up, I was doing some Molotov cocktail in my garden. That was pretty dangerous. But after that, I just make some fireworks, homemade fireworks, because that was funny. There was a lot of adrenaline. But with the therapy, I learned that there was bad ways to get high sensation, etc. So my therapist told me that that was pretty dangerous to do that, and that was not in my best interest.
Okay, okay. Now let's talk about a little bit when you used to manipulate the girls, then you look for. I was gonna say exactly what you said. Those type of woman that you were looking for is just as you explain about your mom.
I don't hate anybody because you know that's interesting because very often people think that as a psychopath I am a sadist or something like that, and I always tell to people, how can I hate somebody that I don't care about? And this is the case for psychopaths. When a psychopath do bad things to another person, it is not a question of hate or sadism. Sadism is another classification of psychopathy, very rare. So when a psychopath do something, it's more a question of I want to get that, and okay, but I don't hate anybody. I don't hate other women, and I never hate them because maybe the other psychopath you've interviewed hate guys, but I'm not in this kind of thing of hating other person, etc.
Yeah, I believe that's every case is different. I think that has something to do with trauma, not with everybody, right? But it's funny that you said that you were searching for the same type of lady that seems to be similar to your mom. And when you used to do that, like I see the cycle of abuse, the manipulation, love bombing in the beginning because you want to get the person to like you. So you're going to become the person that she desired to have, right? So
Yeah,
it's something you guys learn how to do. It's something that comes with the psychopathy because it seems to be very similar.
yeah. I want to say that in the first place, it's an instinct. I'm gonna use a metaphor, but if you look at it, a baby wolf learn pretty quickly how to hunt maybe a rabbit or something like that. It's an instinct. But I think that with time, the manipulation is in us, but we can learn to perfect it because it's like maybe an investing strategy. You got to do something, doesn't get result. Okay, maybe we're gonna try something else. And manipulation after manipulation, etc., you start to understand that every manipulation is quite the same when you are targeting the same person. So when you do that, it's like, I want to say, maybe the McDonald of manipulation. You just duplicate the thing, because you see the person and it's like an instinct. In the past, I was looking to somebody, just somebody who was walking in the street. I was able to tell to myself, okay, this person is pretty manipulative. No, no, can be manipulated. Sorry, this person is pretty naive. Because the way the person, man or female, can walk that way, something like that. You can tell to yourself, okay, the body language tells that, etc. It's after that, it's all unconscious. You understand how people
Yes,
works.
yes. And because we not function like that, it's hard for us to realize when we are being manipulated.
Yeah.
Before, I'm telling about myself before, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
But now it's really clear to me. Okay, I have questions here. Let me start with them. In your opinion, what would the world be like if everyone were a psychopath?
Oh man, that would be. Do you know the movie Hunger Games? Yeah, the famous game where they let you get out into the nature, get some stuff, and there is only one winner. This is pretty. No, it's a metaphor, but the world would be, I think, much more. I want to say unstable a little bit, because just imagine, if there is no social contract. Man, that would be a mess.
What about if everyone were like us?
With empathy and etc. Um, that's a difficult question, because if you look at it, all the great the great leaders and etc. were able to do the bad work or something like that. Just imagine, maybe take Julius Caesar. He was able to conquer Gallics, etc. And he was doing war. You need to expand the borders, kill somebody, and if you are too much empathetic, you're gonna say to yourself, okay, we got this city, Rome, that is pretty beautiful. Why expand borders? And there is a guy like Julius Caesar who came to you and tell, we're gonna I'm gonna give you the greatest empire that ever existed on earth. But an empathetic person gonna say, yes, but that's not respectful of others, or that's not moral. And I believe that we need a combination of cold people and empathetic person.
It's not good to be only psychopaths in the world and not good to be only us because there will be
Yeah,
no balance.
yeah. I think it's a balance. We need some um, combination of both. I think, because it's more effective.
Yeah, when it's used for good, right? When you guys use for good, then it's great.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The question is, what is the good and the bad? That is
God,
the real question.
I believe in God, so I believe in the Bible, so I follow what He tells is the right and wrong. That's my view. That's what I believe. If everybody follow one thing, that is the Almighty One, that is the one
Mhm.
who says above, that is higher than everyone. I think that will be the best for this world. But it's gonna get worse than before it gets better, because that's in the Bible too. It's part of the whole thing,
Yeah, yeah. Yes, and of course it depends on the god, because if you worship maybe a Nordic god, it's a god of war, a god of knowledge, magic, etc. The good is to do war, so it's a question of tradition and the god you worship. But it's a difficult question, the good and the bad, I think.
For me, it's easy, but I see that for you guys is different too. So, and that's when we got in shock sometimes. Would you like us to do to you what you used to do, what most of the psychopaths do, right? Because you want
Yeah,
something and then you pass over anybody. How do you see people, right? How usually, not you, let's say, how psychopath usually see people as an object. Now you see us different, or you still think we are like a object? How do you see us?
in the past I was seeing people as object, something that is not really alive, in the sense of I was telling to myself, they are maybe not feeling as much as they say, you know, but it's quite difficult because you know that you are different and you need to mask. And sometimes you understand that people are not the same as you, but you tell to yourself, yeah, but that doesn't matter if they suffer because they are, I was seeing people, I like to say stone because a stone doesn't feel anything, so in the past there was something like that, very strange to understand that people can feel sad and can feel anger if they are manipulated, something like that.
So you're saying that you used to see people as a rock? Is that what you said?
No, that's a metaphor for telling an object. I used to say, when I was manipulating somebody, for me that was like taking a rock and throwing into a lake. You don't ask to yourself, maybe the rock is gonna feel bad or the rock is gonna suffer. That's a metaphor used to explain the process of not feeling the consequence and the suffer of others.
Yes, and it's funny because you see yourself as a person, as
Mhm.
someone that has, yeah, your feelings, but others, because looking as we are the same, and we have eyes, ears, mouth. I go to the bathroom, you go to the bathroom too. I take a shower, you take a shower. You need to go to the doctor when you get sick. We do too. So
Yeah, but in myself, I was telling, I get my shot first because everybody think about themselves, and I'm gonna say it in a bad way, but it's shoot before being killed. That was my way of saying it. I need to kill you before you kill me. That's the way of nature. And that was, maybe now I can admit, there was a justification to do manipulation and to do these egotistical things, because I was like, yeah, but you're gonna manipulate me anyway, so I need to manipulate you before you manipulate me. That was the way of saying things.
and this is another thing that I think has to do with traumas. Maybe it's unconscious, but I think it does. I think it does a lot. But it's good
Maybe.
to know. It's a good to know. Good thing to know. Let me go to the next one. Um, Somebody asked me to ask you, and you already said something a little bit, but for someone that may have a child, what would be the signs in a childhood that they can look for? Like, because I know the difference between a child that has psychopathy and doesn't have is more of this not feeling as the other feel. But if they don't say it, how can you, what are the signs that the parent can visualize?
Maybe
Maybe.
you're gonna understand it by yourself because you're gonna see the reaction, you're gonna see maybe the ego, a child that is pretty egotistical, sometimes a form of narcissism, and a lot of manipulation. And that's the thing you need to understand, even if it's a child, and especially because it's a child, if you go with them to therapy, a child is an angel. Nobody would say, "Oh, this child got bad behavior," something like that. No, you tend to tell yourself, "This is a child. He's innocent." So you're gonna come to the psychiatrist, psychologist with your child, and you're gonna tell to the psychiatrist, this is impossible to leave because he's so difficult, etc. The child gonna manipulate the thing, and the psychiatrist gonna end up by accusing you of not being a good parent. That happen quite often. That I got some emails of people telling me that happened quite often. I understood pretty quickly that in life, when you ask something with a good smile, you often get it. So that was not like I'm gonna throw something and get me the shit in my hands, because no, I was not like that. I was asking with a good smile. I was more in manipulation, pretty young, so that was more things of getting these things without being arrogant and something like that. So that was quite different, but very manipulative too.
So this is a big sign in a childhood that the parents can see in daily basis that they manipulate, they lie in school,
Yeah,
they have
yeah.
some problems in school. About animals, did you had anything to do with the animals? Did you like or dislike or try to hurt them sometime in
No,
childhood? No?
never, never. Because one day I remember I saw a dog dying, but I was not sad of it. I was like, that's life, that's life. But now I have a dog, and you got a psychopath can have this pretty good relationship with a dog, because if you look at it, a dog is innocent, he's loyal. He don't want you to wear a mask because he don't think about it. So I got this pretty good relationship with my dog.
That's nice. That's nice. And I keep thinking, remembering about a few friends that I had that they had animals. One of them, she didn't like the animals. I could see and tell. But later on, I think it was some advantage for her. And then she got a dog. But yeah, it's always about you guys, right? How people will look at you. Another one, she got a dog because everybody that is empathic, they have animals. So I'm going to have animal too. But you're able to take care of the animal, right? But not
Yeah.
love them, right?
Yeah, but with the dog is pretty much the same, and especially with the dog just want one thing: to be your dog. It is its way of seeing life. So with my dog, it's a pretty good relationship because he's protective with me. I protect him. This is the thing. I just want to eat, to live with me, being with me, and this is so much simple, much more simple that human relationship. So I think we can care about them, we can protect them, but loving them is quite impossible for us because our brain is not capable of doing that.
What about in adulthood? What are the signs, the big red flags that we can, oh, maybe it's a psychopath, just by, I see you talking about in other videos too, that is the appearance, right? First impression. So what else can you share with us that will be a red flag for us to find out maybe it's a psychopath?
Like I said, first impression, and uh, I want to say, this type of narcissism, but not. It's quite difficult because there is the narcissistic that is narcissist. The guy is looking at himself in the mirror, etc. But I want to say with a psychopath, it's different, much more bigger. Something. It's like I'm touched by God. God just touched me by the hand, and a person can understand that. Sometimes you're gonna tell to yourself, this guy God is in the psychos. He's not connected to reality, and no, this is just a person who is very narcissistic. Um, I want to say again, first impression, because people don't understand how important this, because our brain is wired in a way to make a decision in maybe 2 or 4 seconds. And in that time, you make the first impression, and the person got this first impression of you. And to change this first impression, especially impressions that are made with emotion or faith, it's practically impossible to change the mind of somebody who is convinced by emotion, etc. So when we hear first impression, um, it's something much more powerful than just saying hi. It's something that is quite, I don't want to say unnatural, but something more powerful, something like a feeling. The person who's going to be the victim in the manipulation going to say, what just happened? This person got something, and this is something you need to leave, not to understand. I want to say that.
Mysterious at the same time.
Yeah. The problem is that you understand too late in a manipulation. Quite often, you're gonna tell to yourself, maybe there is some inconsistency, something like that. But in the end, your instinct is right. So at the same time, first impression is important, but people need to trust their instinct. Instinct is simply there to protect you, I want to say. In the past, your instinct telling you to run away, you run away, you don't ask question. So people need to trust them in more something intern, more based on instinct, and trust the instinct, not the appearance of somebody else telling them, oh, I'm trustworthy. If I can give an advice to people, very often I can hear, oh, I'm going to teach you about manipulation, something like that. And they talk about, um, some points like remorse, like fear mongering, playing on fear, something like that. And I always told to people, manipulation is just a question of one thing: trust. So just a question of trust. And very often, you got this person telling you that, oh, my brother gonna play on remote, etc. And it's right, but it's being focused on just one side of the manipulation. But the bigger goal of manipulation is just to gain trust. If you gain trust, it's like somebody who's gonna buy a car. If you gain their trust, they're gonna buy the car. So with the manipulation, it's exactly the same. You just need to get trust. And when somebody is trusting you, oh, is that even possible that somebody who's trusting you is not gonna give you what you want? A person like that not gonna tell you, oh, I'm trust you, but buddy, just fuck off, just get away from me. That's not gonna happen.
I ask if you believe in God. Do you believe in Satan too?
I think a lot of people blame Saturn for bad things, but at the basis, it was just an angel, or fallen angel. So I think very often people blame this guy for all the bad things on earth. It depends what you call Satan's. Some people call me Satan's. Some people call me that.
Why? When they call you like that? Why?
Because some people assume that something demonic inside of me, something like that. But if God exists, yes, Satan exists. But I want to say that my beliefs are quite complicated. So I think for Christian, maybe my God is the Satan.
I don't want to get into that so deep because it's not the point. But if you look what Satan did, he want to be more than God. He manipulate 30% of the angels to get on his side. He
Yeah,
thinks he's the best. He's, and what he does, he manipulate those people. He does, the behavior is very similar to the people that were born like this or not born like this is very similar. There's no doubt about it. But
yeah,
as you said, free will, we all have choice to choose to do it or not to do it. And I think that's what God looks. But most of the people with that with that diagnosis, they don't care about God. They think they are better than God. They are God, right?
Uh, hmm. I think that yes, we can believe that we are God. That's a belief too. It's called Gnosticism, and that's part of my belief sometimes because it's, I said, considered as occultism, etc. But I think this is a very stimulating way of seeing things, that we don't need to praise somebody because we already got the divine spark inside of us.